Well, I feel like it's time, since the roads are clear, at least around here, to do a little Ovalbore garage segment on the Z8. If you guys watched the first video of the night, picked it up, or sorry, it got dropped off. It's a pretty special car. They made a grand total of, I think, around 5,000 of these worldwide. I think we got roughly 3,000 of those here in the States. So we got a disproportionately large number of these here, and roughly 50% of those were silver. I actually was looking for a black on red. I think that's the best color combination on this car, but again, when you're looking for such a specific thing with such specific buyers and sellers, you go for condition and price over all else. So this is a 2002. It is the last year of the Z8 before BMW gave all of the leftover E52 bodies to Alpina, which were then fitted with M62 engines, 4.6 liter ones, and a 5-speed ZF5 HP24 automatic, as opposed to the S62 B49 and the Getrag 420G in this car. This is titanium silver on Schwarz leather, 394 horsepower, I think 380 something foot-pounds of torque. There are many unique features about this car. The aluminum monocoque, the neon turn signals and taillights, not LED but neon. It is the first BMW to use a V8 engine and rack and pinion steering. All the E34s and E39s prior to this used recirculating ball on the V8 cars and rack and pinion on the majority of the 6-cylinder cars, so that was unique. It was a lot of first for BMW, but a lot of it was really the aluminum technology, and then of course combining the iconic 507-ish styling into a very unique car. I think this thing got ripped quite a bit when it was new because it has kind of a mixed personality. You sit in it and you drive it, and it's two different things. So you sit in here and like, oh, this is the lowest lung little sports car. You've got a tremendously long hood, stiff steering, not very bitey brakes. And that's the first hint that this thing isn't a sports car. It's much more of a grand tourer, which I think is why the Alpinas have appreciated so much. People really do think it fits the character of the E52 chassis a little bit better than the S62 and the 6-speed. Even if we're honest, this is the combination to get the Z8. I think that's actually plastic. It's made to look metal, but there's a Z8 monogram there. The interior headliner of the hardtop and the soft top are both lined. Leather sun visors, auto-dimming mirror with security lens. This one is about to fall off actually, so I may have to do something about that. But this one isn't bleeding. Very common for these and a lot of M cars of the era. Switchgear, completely bespoke. Doesn't share anything with any other BMW model. Center cluster gauges. It uses an M engine, but it's a WBA chassis VIN, which means it is not an M car. It does not have an M gauge cluster, even though indicative of the rev counter. This is an S62, revs to 7,000 RPM. All of the creature comforts you would like. The majority of it is plastic, even though it's really designed to mimic the aluminum, or yeah, actually most of it was aluminum back in the 50s. The fit and finish is exceptionally good. They were able to squeeze safety standards into here, so it has a complement of airbags. The seats are not terribly comfortable, but this car only has 40,000 miles on it, so I'm guessing they're not fully broken in yet. But yeah, I'm gonna grab my seatbelt here, and we'll take this thing for a quick little jaunt. And you guys will have to let me know how you feel of a little bit wider camera angle. I just picked up a iPhone 11 Pro to replace my 2.5-year-old aging 10 that I've been using for YouTube. So this is the first time I've driven this car outside of just moving it from storage unit to storage unit. So the shifter, that's very Getrag 420. It feels similar to a stock M5 or E46 M3. The throttle response, even in sport, I would say is decent. It's not nearly as sharp as the sport throttle on an E39 M5 or an E46 M3, although it's very good. It definitely has a very confidence-inspiring tip-in. The steering is so heavy it feels like it's almost not even assisted. I don't know how much of that is just due to the type of tire that's on the car, but I have a feeling a lot of it is deliberate and due to just the character of the parts supplied by BMW for the Z8. I still have yet to pull the top down on this because I need two very competent people, with or without myself, to handle that job. It's quite a bit louder than the E39 M5, and I do mean that in a complimentary way. The ride is quite harsh. It feels a lot like a M Sport X3 or an M Sport F10 5 Series. It's well damped but stiffly sprung. And again, I think that was probably different on the Alpina, which had different springs and dampers. I'm guessing that was a lot more in line with the Grand Touring feel of the car, even though it looks like a sports car. And the Z8 really is. The clutch pedal is very BMW, progressive. It feels like it has a self-adjusting clutch in it. I'm guessing it does. I'm noticing by how cold they are, the spokes on the steering wheel are aluminum, not plastic, which makes sense because this has to be pretty structural, but they're beautiful nonetheless. What else? Yeah, the seats feel kind of like stock E46 non-sport seats, so not great. However, the leather is clearly a cut above. That is worth mentioning. Everything is much more supple. The dash and door panels are all double French stitched leather. You can tell that a lot of care and thought went into the design and production of the Z8. These were all, of course, handmade. In Dingolfing, Germany. Fun fact about the start button arrangement. See it down there. Pretty much every modern BMW that came after the Z8, brand new, either had from the get-go or had optional a engine start button. But those, you don't turn a key, you don't put a key in the ignition, and you don't have to hold the start button. On this car, if you just tap the start button with the key in, it will just tap the starter. You don't have to hold the button until the engine starts, so you're still responsible for a lot of what happens. And this car is very analog in that sense, which makes sense because, of course, this was designed in 96 was the inception of the concept. And then it actually went into production. Oh geez, somebody's blocking my view here. It actually went into production in 99 with pre-production cars and the first very, very late 99 production vehicles. And then it went 2000 and 2001 full years. Sorry, 2001, 2002 full years. And then 2003, as I said, we're all Alpinas. Sorry about my gap in dialogue there. Very, very sprightly. It's a fun car. I can't say it feels as powerful as the E39 M5. Obviously, I wasn't redlining it, but this car is much heavier than it looks. It's only about 300 pounds lighter than the M5. And this is an aluminum car. That's a steel car. This is a two-door. That's a four-door. So I think a lot of it just went into sound deadening and making the car as rigid as humanly possible with the factors given. So I think they did, again, a really good job with the car. I see what people meant with a conflicting personality, but I don't think it detracts from the car at all. In fact, I think that makes the Z8 quirkier, and the quirky cars tend to do better long term, especially when they're equipped with a very reliable and fun to row 6-speed. Now that I've quickly ripped through the gears, I do have a couple complaints about the gear shift. The knob is very light and the linkage feels very rubbery. So I'll probably leave it, but I think this car would complement with a couple of Delrin shift bushings and a ZHP knob. However, again, sacrilege on this particular vehicle, so I won't be doing that. Just worth mentioning. Overall, again, very, very lovely. The brakes, no real bite, initial bite. You know, it's kind of like the tip-in for brakes. That's all down to pad compound. Somebody may have put dustless pads in this just to try to keep the wheels nicer at some point. I'm not sure if those are stock, but that would fit better, I think, with the Alpina. I think a set of much bitier Techstar pads out of an M5 would fit better in this car. And I believe it shares the brakes with the M5, but I'm not entirely sure on that. A conflicted car, but It's very quiet for a convertible, even assuming with the hardtop on here. It's very, very quiet. Going down a road that I know is actually pretty bumpy, I feel bad critiquing the ride quality, calling it an E83 X3. It's definitely stiffly sprung, but it's not uncomfortable. So I think BMW knew what they were doing with this thing. At the time, it actually did very, very fast lap times around the Nürburgring, which again seems a little asinine for a car that is kind of based on a Grand Tour. But I appreciate the fact that they took a little more time and care with the powertrain and were able to rob the BMW M division of one of their best engines of all time. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll think of anything else, but it's a lovely car. Just the fit and finish throughout, the drive, the soundtrack. This is one of 2 good modern BMW V8s ever produced, and the better of the 2. So, yeah, this thing's great. Huh, that's a quirk. I just washed it off, and I realized it's got the old style Innie Audi wipers, and it actually has the old original insert style BMW wiper blades, which is pretty cool. Now I'm just gonna go run it up and down the street once more, air dry it a little bit, and then flat towel it off with a nice clean towel to not screw up the paint. I really don't like this shift knob. I might have to change that out. Keep the original, of course, but that shifter needs some work. And one final thought while I wait for my own gate to open. I think it has a clutch delay valve in it. I really hope it doesn't, but I bet it does. That's the one thing I'm noticing as I'm heel-toe downshifting in this, which I'm sure very few Z8 owners would ever bother to do, but it's got a little bit of a lag to it. It's not that noticeable in the upshifts, but I think it's there. Unbelievable. It's fast, though. I opened it up a little bit more, and I think it is M5 speed, but I don't get the impression that it's any faster, certainly. Mostly air dried off. Still definitely need to flat towel it. And, of course, the real reason you buy a Z8, to look at it. No, I kid. It's a pretty good car. But yeah, that's kind of the real basics. I mean, if you want to learn more about these, there's a ton of information out there on paper, and actually very few videos on these cars on YouTube or anything like that. So I'm going to try to change that. Moving forward, I will try to do some more content with the Z8. I do have some little repairs and maintenance here and there that I have planned for it. Little stuff like changing hood struts. I'm going to be doing spark plugs on it. Probably a transmission fluid change. Definitely an oil change, just so I know how old the oil is in it. I don't really care because synthetic lasts pretty much forever. But yeah, that's a fine line with wanting to enjoy this car and use it and also not damage it. Because every little paint blemish on one of these cars really, really tanks the value. It's an odd choice for me. Anyway. There you go. That is the, oh, I almost forgot. That is not the whole segment. Plans for the car. Keep it and enjoy it. We don't have any immediate plans of selling this. So it's possible, 10 years down the road, something could happen. We end up getting rid of it, but this one is pretty cool. So anyway, there we go. That's the end of it. Thank you, as always, for watching. Yeah, I'll catch you guys when I have something else moderately interesting to film.